What is going on, everybody? It's your boy John, and welcome back to Gearbox. So today we are headed back from a good day of work. It's hotter than hell here in South Carolina, and so we're just going to film a little video for you guys today. And today's topic has to do with this truck, the 2024 F-150 Raptor. Now, really, to give a little bit of context, I guess you could say, around this topic is ever since I bought this truck, mainly, like, not necessarily YouTube comments or anything like that, but a lot of people that I know or I have met or whatever always try to have me, like, I don't know, justify purchasing a Raptor, for lack of a better term. And not that I feel that I need to justify myself to anyone, because I really don't give a shit what people think about me or whatever. That's just not typically something that I care about. But I have had plenty of conversations where people just won't drop it. And I'm like, all right, buddy, you want to get into it? Let's get into it. And so here we are with today's video. Now, once again, I just want to kind of throw out a disclaimer that just because I can justify it this way does not mean you necessarily should take the same approach. But I do feel that it is some sound logic, and so we might as well talk about it and see if this is something that maybe fits your style as well. So once again, I purchased a 2024 F-150 Raptor, I guess it was December of this year. So at this point, I've had it for a couple months and absolutely love this truck. Now, to kind of back up and explain the, I guess, history of purchasing this vehicle, we need to touch on my previous truck, which was a 2019 XLT F-150. Loved that truck, did, a handful of mods to it, nothing super crazy or anything like that, but, lifted it, had the big 35s on it, so on and so forth, and really enjoyed it. And not just that truck in particular, but I've always been kind of partial to Fords. So therefore, when I started looking for a new truck, Ford was going to be the first option. But really, the way it kind of went down is I bought that 2019 F-150 with around 40,000 miles on it, obviously used, and, put some decent mileage on it. I think we put another 40 grand on it before we ended up selling it. Now, my whole justification of owning a truck, I tow a little bit here and there, and that's fine. But number one, I do enjoy driving a bigger vehicle as more of a practical kind of daily driver, if you will, but mainly in the kind of realm of road trips. My wife and I take a lot of road trips, whether it's going to visit family or vacations or, in some cases for business. And of course, I'm just not going to pack down the Supra. Like, that's a god-awful idea. And so therefore, we were able to justify buying a truck in general. Now, when we picked up this 2019, like I said, we put about 40,000 miles on it. Everything was hunky-dory. But of course, always in the back of my head was the 10R80 transmission, which of course I've made videos on, and that video honestly has blown up, and you guys have given a lot of feedback on that video. But because of the model year of that truck, it was still in the phase of this thing hasn't been fixed yet, and therefore in some ways it's kind of a ticking time bomb of a transmission. Now, once we eclipsed the, let's call it 75,000 mile mark on my old truck, I started to feel some weird stuff with the transmission. All of the kind of stereotypical symptoms, right? Hard shifting, getting stuck in gears, definitely some transmission slip here and there. Nothing super predominant, but it was something where you either got to shit or get off the pot type of situation. And we decided to shit at that point, if we're following that analogy. Now, as my wife and I were talking about this, and she's not super mechanically inclined, but as I dumbed it down to a fairly elementary level of saying, hey babe, this thing is going to stop going if we don't get rid of it or fix it, and this thing will just be bricked in our driveway, she got the point. So we started talking about buying a new truck. For my wife, one of her biggest gripes of the 2019 F-150 was the lack of like 360 cameras. She likes a truck, she likes driving a truck, but she didn't feel super comfortable driving it in the city or, you know, in tight parking lots and stuff like that, because it was so big that she felt that she couldn't really park it or maneuver it in such a way that would not hit other vehicles. Me, on the other hand, I was fine, but that's neither here nor there. So when we started talking about these new trucks, she was like, I want to buy a newer F-150 with all the cameras, all the this, all the that, to make her feel more comfortable in driving the truck. And I was like, you know what? That's a fair point. I always feel super selfish if I'm going to buy something just for myself. I want to buy something that my wife and I both can enjoy equally and use equally as well. So when we started building out, like, we were not just going to go to a lot, you know, we're kind of like, if we're going to spend this money, let's build something that we build ourselves and actually appreciate every single feature and whatever that's in that truck. So we went on Ford, started building out some Platinum, started building out some King Ranches, you know, a little bit higher trim level than what we had, but nothing crazy, I guess, out of the ordinary. And those trucks were not cheap, okay? They were very expensive. A lot of times in the 70,000 range, more or less, maybe some in the high 60s, but a lot of money compared to what we bought the 2019 for. And as we talk through it and we're trying to run these numbers and overall justify this purchase, I'm like, hold on. I know that a couple years earlier is when they made the flip over to the Sync 4 system and all of the different technology packages in these trucks. It's not just the brand new 2025 or 2026 model years. Let's take a look at some of those trucks. And at that point in time, we stumbled across this. And boys and girls, if I tell you that my wife was not thrilled that I pulled up a Raptor, you would be correct. It was a hard no initially. I said, well, if we're gonna do this and spend that kind of money, let's get an even higher trim level than what we're looking at building. And so naturally, I originally gravitated towards the Tremors. She was not a fan of them, but I know she loves Raptors. So I found this Raptor in Asheville, North Carolina, said, hey, why don't you take a look at it? She was very hesitant at first. She's like, John, we don't need a Raptor. That's too much money, blah, 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 blah. And I said, hey, I understand where you're coming from, but if you look at the price tag here and you look at the price tag there, they're the same thing, more or less. Especially when you start comparing, like, let's say there's an $8,000 gap between one truck to another. Sure, that's not an insignificant amount of money, but it's not a lot of money either when you break it down into total loan value. And that's what I was really trying to talk through with my wife. And my wife is very, very smart. She's really, really good with money, but she didn't quite understand the, I guess, cost-benefit analysis of going to a Raptor rather than buying maybe an older, you know, King Ranch, for example. So we talked through it, and she's like, all right, I see your point. I love the Raptor. I love the color. I love everything about it. Why don't you go look at it and see if this is really something that you and I would like? And I'm like, really? Did I just possibly talk you into a Raptor? She's like, well, you know, go see it, check it out, make sure it's good. But yeah, I trust your judgment, like, whatever. And so we did. Set a appointment up to go up to Asheville, which is only about an hour 20 or so from where we're at. But drove up there on a Saturday, met with the sales guy, so on and so forth. The numbers made sense, and here we are. So really, the whole kind of gist of this conversation is, don't always be, like, I guess, gun shy from the perspective of trim level. Of course, if you're trying to get a super specific type of truck with super specific functionality, yeah, you know, go get what you want, assuming you have the funds to do so. But what it really boiled down to with this truck versus trucks that we were building was we were in the same exact price range. There was not a whole lot of difference, if any at all, to be honest, between a truck that's a year or two newer at a lower trim level versus a year or two older, highest trim level you can really get. And it just kind of was a bang for your buck type of conversation. On top of that, of course, as we all know, buying a new truck is one of the worst financial decisions you can make from the perspective of depreciation. In this case, this truck had already hit some depreciation. It wasn't fully depreciated, you know, it only had 5,000 miles on it, but it did go off the lot once already. So therefore that knocks off, let's call it 10K or whatever that comes out to be. So just talking through some of those more, I guess, soft financial points rather than the hard dollars and cents, it just kind of made sense to us. Now, in the back of my mind this entire time, once again, I love Ford. I love Ford Raptors. Ever since they've come out, it was something that I was intrigued by, and I always wanted to own at one point in my life, and it just so happened to be now-ish. So anyway, do your research, think about it thoroughly, don't get caught on the trim level or the model year or something. Really take all of that out, strip it out of your brain, and look at what does this truck do, what functionality does it offer me, what creature comforts does it offer me, and then from there, you can start to add in the trim and the this and the that, and kind of make your decision at that point. So, guys, I know I just rambled on a little bit. Hopefully I got the point across, but long story short, this truck has been an absolute joy to own and drive. There's not a second I hop in this car and I'm like, oh, damn, you know, this thing kind of sucks. No, this truck is awesome. If you have any further questions on us kind of justifying this or maybe some other areas that we looked into to really make our decision, drop them in the comments section down below. If you like this video, if you like this truck, if one day you want to own a Raptor, give this video a big fat thumbs up. And as always, guys, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. You know the drill. Until next time, peace.